Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, is this it? Not because everything is falling apart, but because nothing is moving. You're paying rent month after month, watching house prices climb while your savings barely seem to grow. You're working harder than ever, yet your bank account never reflects the effort. You're in a relationship that isn't terrible, but it isn't taking you anywhere either. You love them. Maybe they even love you. But deep down, you know you're standing still. This is the story of Zosia. And maybe it's also your story. Zosia wasn't unhappy all the time. She laughed with friends. She went to work every day. She paid her bills. She smiled in photos. From the outside, her life looked perfectly normal. But every night when she closed the front door of the tiny rental she'd called home for years, she felt something she couldn't quite explain. Like life was happening, but not progressing. Every month, she handed over another rent payment. Every month, she promised herself she'd save more. And every month, something unexpected happened. The car needed repairs. The electricity bill increased. The weekly grocery shop cost more than it had the week before. By payday, she was back where she started. Again, and again, and again. It wasn't failure. It was survival. And survival has a way of convincing you that surviving is all you'll ever do. Then there was Liam. 6 years together. 6 birthdays. 6 Christmases. 6 New Year's kisses. People constantly asked them, "So, when's the wedding?" Zosia would smile politely. Liam would laugh. One day. One day. Those 2 words slowly became years whenever she talked about buying a home. One day. Whenever she asked about getting engaged. One day. Whenever she wondered what their future looked like. One day. Eventually, Zosia realized something painful. She wasn't waiting for the future anymore. She was waiting for permission to have one. At work, she gave everything. She arrived early. She stayed late. She solved problems before anyone asked. She trained new staff. She supported her team. She picked up extra responsibilities. Then a promotion became available. Everyone assumed she would get it. She didn't. Instead, her manager sat across the desk from her and said something she would never forget. "We think you need more confidence." Confidence? Zosia drove home that evening completely numb. How could she work this hard and still not be enough? As she sat in traffic, she glanced at the car beside her. A little girl was laughing in the back seat. She couldn't have been older than 6. She was looking through the window with the kind of excitement only children seem to have. Zosia couldn't stop thinking about her. That little girl probably dreamed of growing up and having adventures, traveling, falling in love, owning a beautiful home, building a meaningful career. She certainly hadn't dreamed of growing up and feeling stuck. The traffic lights turned green. The cars moved. But Zosia couldn't shake one question. When did I stop believing my life could change? That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed every disappointment. The rented house, the empty savings account, the promotion she had missed, the relationship that never moved forward. Then, almost like a whisper, a different thought appeared. What if I'm not trapped? What if I've just stopped moving? That question changed everything. Not overnight, not magically, but quietly, powerfully. The next morning, Zosia opened a notebook. On the very first page, she wrote 6 words. What can I control today? Not next year, not 5 years from now. Today. The answer surprised her. She couldn't control house prices. She couldn't control Liam. She couldn't control her manager, but she could control herself. So she started small. Really small. She tracked every pound she spent. She transferred money into savings before she had the chance to spend it. Sometimes it was only 10 pounds, sometimes 20. It didn't matter. She was proving something. Not to the bank, to herself. She listened to finance podcasts during her commute instead of replaying arguments in her head. She enrolled in online leadership courses. She updated her CV. She applied for jobs she secretly believed she wasn't qualified for. Every single day, she asked herself the same question: what can I control today? Little by little, life began answering back. The funny thing about confidence is that it rarely arrives first. Action does. Confidence is simply the reward for keeping promises to yourself. Every time Zosia saved another 20 pounds, her confidence grew. Every time she finished another course, her confidence grew. Every interview she attended, her confidence grew. She wasn't becoming luckier. She was becoming stronger. But one thing wasn't changing: Liam. He still loved talking about dreams. He just never wanted to build them. One Friday evening, Zosia asked him something she had been afraid to ask for years. What are we working towards? He shrugged. I don't know. That answer hurt more than any argument ever could, because for the first time, she realized she already knew. Nothing. They weren't building a future. They were extending the present. Sometimes the hardest relationships to leave are the ones that aren't toxic. They're just stagnant. Leaving Liam wasn't dramatic. There were no slammed doors, no screaming matches, just tears, silence, heartbreak, and an empty side of the bed. People congratulated her for being brave. She didn't feel brave. She felt terrified. Starting over is never glamorous. It's lonely. You question yourself constantly. You wonder whether you've made the biggest mistake of your life. But every morning, Zosia returned to her notebook. What can I control today? Months later, her phone rang. We'd like to offer you the position. Not only had she found a new job, she had earned the promotion she had once thought was impossible. A higher salary, greater responsibility, a team that believed in her. For the first time in years, work felt exciting again. Not because it was easier, because she had finally realized her value. Her savings kept growing, slowly, painfully, patiently. Until one afternoon, she sat across from a mortgage broker. She had almost canceled the appointment. People like me don't buy houses, she thought. The broker examined her finances and smiled. Let's see what's possible. Possible. That word felt different now. Weeks later, Zosia stood inside an empty house. Her house. There wasn't any furniture yet, just bare walls, wooden floors, and sunlight pouring through the windows. She sat in the middle of the lounge room and cried. Not because she had bought a home, but because she had finally become the woman she had spent years waiting to meet. A few months later, life surprised her again. She met Noah. Not through an app, not through friends, just by chance. He listened, really listened. He remembered the little things. He celebrated her successes instead of feeling threatened by them. When she talked about the future, he joined the conversation. There were no mixed signals, no waiting, no guessing, just peace. One evening, they sat together on the back deck of her home, watching the sunset. Noah looked around and smiled. You've built an incredible life. Zosia laughed. You should have seen me a few years ago. He shook his head. No, because that version of you built this one. And that was when Zosia finally understood something. She had spent years believing she was stuck because of her circumstances. The rental, the money, the relationship, the job. But none of those things were the real prison. The prison was believing that because nothing had changed yesterday, nothing could change tomorrow. Real transformation doesn't usually arrive like lightning. It arrives quietly. One decision, one habit, one difficult conversation, one application, one boundary, one small act of courage repeated over and over until one day you wake up and your entire life looks different. So, if you're watching this today, if you're lying awake wondering whether life will ever change, If you're exhausted from paying rent, if you're wondering whether your relationship is growing or simply existing, if you're questioning your worth at work, hear this. You are not behind. You are not too late. And you are certainly not stuck forever. The life you want isn't built in one giant leap. It's built during ordinary days that most people underestimate. The savings account no one applauds. The course no one notices. The interview that scares you. The boundary you finally set. The goodbye that breaks your heart. So your future can finally begin. One day, you'll unlock the front door to a home that is yours. You'll check your bank balance without fear. You'll walk into a job where you're respected. You'll sit beside someone who doesn't make you question whether you're enough. And you'll look back at the version of yourself who thought life would never change. You'll smile, because you'll realize she wasn't stuck. She was simply standing at the beginning of the life that would eventually prove her wrong. So tonight, ask yourself just one question. Not where you'll be in 5 years, not how you'll solve everything. Just this. What can I control today? Because the answer to that question may become the beginning of the story you'll one day tell. And if this story found you at exactly the right time, maybe that isn't a coincidence. Maybe today is the day your life starts moving again.